What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning into the video. Today, I want to just rant a little bit about the relationship between risk and volatility and how I personally interpret it, and why I fear it might be a hot take, but I just want to throw it out there and get your guys' thoughts on it because my conviction is true about this 100%. Or not true, like objectively true. I mean, it's ringing true in my head, and I don't know if I could be swayed, but I would love to get your guys' thoughts on it. Um, but basically, I remember when I was taking my investments classes in college that the way that they would define risk is how much the price moves, the standard deviation of the price over a given period, and I guess volatility. Volatility is another way to put that. The volatility of the asset's price is the risk of holding it. And I just was never able to completely get on board with that because you can't tell me, excuse me, you can't tell me that the risk of holding cash is the lowest risk you could ever have because the price, a dollar is always going to be a dollar. If you hold a dollar bill, that's always going to be a dollar bill. There's no volatility in that. But you can't tell me that that's the least risky thing you could ever hold, the least risky asset. Because think about all the opportunity cost you're losing out on having that money invested. I mean, that risk, that's a really high risk to me, though, the way that I see it. The way that I see it, the risk of holding a dollar is higher than the risk of investing in the S&P 500. So that's like just a basis so you guys can kind of see like where my head's at right now. That's the way that I see risk. Not necessarily like the motion of the price, really. Because if you look at something really volatile like Tesla, Palantir, Bitcoin, these really high movement stocks, right, that are moving a lot, I think that it's just questionable to see the volatility and then quantify that as the risk and just call it a day. Because you need to look at what's underlying. The underlying company is at the end of the day how you really can calculate risk, in my opinion, right? You look at the market the company's in, you look at the management, the leadership of the company, the business model of the company. And after you've done an evaluation of that, then you can say, okay, in my opinion, this is how risky of a company this would be to hold, right? So take a look at Coca-Cola back in the day, right? A very strong company, the market leader, nearly had a monopoly, and that would have been seen as a stupid thing to throw all of your money into Coca-Cola and nothing else because your portfolio would have been probably pretty volatile because it's all in one stock, right? But how can you tell me that's risky when they're in such a superior market position and then you're going to generate a great return from that? Yeah, if you define risk as number of things you're holding, um, which I guess you could, I'm not going to tell you how to define risk, then that would be true. It would be very risky to just hold one stock and call it a day. But when you do your due diligence and really look into the makeup of something and your conviction is there, then that's that's not risky to you, right? And I feel like that's what investing is all about is when you do your research into something, you understand it, you own it, and then you're not shaken out during these big price movements, right? Excuse me. When it dips a bunch, you're not selling out. When it rises a bunch, you're not selling out and taking the profits as well. You just ride the wave. You let your winner ride and believe in it. Um, and that goes totally against this modern portfolio theory that you see out there, and that all these mutual funds, all these asset managers are just completely abiding by, where they spread their money thin, a bunch, or across a bunch of uncorrelated assets, and they think that that is minimizing, or they believe it's minimizing risk because they're not losing a lot of money on any given day. Okay, congratulations, you've minimized your losses and also minimized all of your gains, right? Because none of you are beating the market, and that's just a fact. I mean, you look at any mutual fund, 9.8 times out of 10, they're not beating the market. 9.9 times out of the 10, they might beat the market, but then you factor in the fees they're charging, and then you're not beating the market, right? There's this like 0.001% of funds that might be beating the market, and I applaud you guys out there, all of you asset managers out there that can do that. Truly great job. And I guarantee you that they're not abiding by this modern portfolio theory of risk. And I mean, you can see that plain as day when you look at the goats like Warren Buffett, Monish Pabrai, what's that Fidelity guy? Shoot, Peter Lynch. Yeah, Peter Lynch. You see that they just picked winners. They picked winners they believed in. Yeah, they diversified in their own way, which was buying a lot, right? They would have a lot of stocks that they would own, but they wouldn't necessarily be in the same way that other managers would, right? Because they would pick winners that they believed in, but they were under different tickers, they were different assets. So that's how they diversified. And a few of those would win big, and that's how they get those fat returns. Like you see, Peter Lynch was averaging like over 30% over all of the years he managed that Fidelity fund, which is absolutely insane. You're never going to see that come out of a fund that believes that risk and volatility are the same thing, because that company's never going to buy an asset that moves a lot, that's going to go up a lot. And this is just how I feel about it. And yeah, I don't know if that's a hot take at all. I truly don't. But I think a year or so I heard this analogy of a waterfall. Like, you look at a waterfall, and I mean, that's a lot of power, that's a lot of energy, a lot of movement, fluctuation, right? Any given drop of water could go any given direction as long as it's going down, right? And a lot of people are scared by that, maybe this unpredictability of the motion of the waterfall. But when you take a step back and look at it, you can have nearly 100% certainty that that waterfall's always going to land in this lake, and the water in this lake is always going to evaporate into the clouds, and then it's always going to rain into the lake that the waterfall's pulling from, right? And it's always feeding into that first lake. And that process, that cycle, you have certainty that that's always going to happen. And maybe you could say that that cycle would be the underlying company, you being certain, you having confidence in the underlying company succeeding. But then the motion of the waterfall in particular is the price, that stock price, because it's so volatile. It's going all over the place. And I just remember when I heard that, it felt like it completely opened my brain. I was like, oh my gosh, volatility is not really something that we should be scared of. It's something we should be aware of and try to almost harness in a way, because the most volatile assets are the ones that can generate the highest returns. And not going out and just saying that you should buy the most volatile assets. That's stupid. Obviously, you have to find confidence in that cycle, the quote unquote cycle that's making up of that company, that price. And that's where that risk comes from. But yeah, that's really all I have. Those are just my thoughts about it. And I would love to hear what the people out there think, what the discourse is. Let me know your thoughts. Maybe I'm an idiot. Let me know if I'm an idiot. Let's have a conversation about it. And then I can follow up maybe in a future video. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate it. If you enjoy this, please just give a like and subscribe so I know that there's some support out there, and I'll keep pumping out content like this. But for now, I just appreciate the view. So thank you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.